Okay, yeah, recording on now. So, hello everyone. My name is Jared Pixley, as no, all of you guys all know, and I'm running for president, which is why you're here. I wanted to hold this town hall and future virtual town halls as a chance for people to get to know me, to ask me questions about my stance on various issues. Um, I want to thank you all for being able to attend this time. Um, I know a lot of people did express interest in wanting to come and have are unable to show up for a variety of reasons. That's why I'll be holding them monthly for now, so that okay, you can't make it this month, there's always next month. Um, one person that I did talk to who was unable to attend, he did ask me one question that I wanted to go ahead and answer right off the bat. He was asking me about the military's ammunition shortage. Uh, According to him, and I would have to verify this information, but because of the Doge cuts at the beginning of 2025, we have quit producing a lot of the ammunition that our military needs to function. And he wanted to know what I would do about it as president. And I think it's a very simple answer. You know, screw Doge. Let's reopen the factories and produce the ammunition we need. And as a tangent to that, I'd also, eliminate a lot of the tariffs, or actually all of the tariffs that Trump has put into effect, so that we can get the materials we need for that production. As tungsten comes from Russia, China, and Canada. We have no major tungsten deposits in the US, so we have to import that. We have to import all the rare earth metals. We have to import a lot of other metals. The steel industry is suffering under the tariffs. Auto manufacturing has decreased because of the tariffs. Getting the metals we need is becoming a financial burden. So I would want to eliminate those tariffs so that we could afford to make the ammunition we need to keep our military in fighting shape. That was just to answer his question. So since all of you know me very well, I'll just open the floor to anyone who has a question for me.
Hey, hi Jared. This is Mike Brandt from
Yep.
nearby you in neighboring Clinton County. My first question is personal, and that is related to my profession as a public educator. What do you see as the role of the federal government in uh, funding, oversight, curriculum standards, and those things related to public education? Uh, if any or all of that.
That is a very good question, and I'll repeat it for anyone else who didn't hear because you are coming in a little weak. But he's asked, what is my belief on the federal government's role in education, in funding and curriculum matters, etc. So I am a proponent of education. I think the United States needs a better educated populace. We are lagging behind Europe. We're lagging behind several countries in Asia. We're on par with countries in Central Africa as far as education goes, according to various international studies. I think that education needs to be better funded. I am trying to work on a budget proposal to find more funding, you know, to pay for more education, to bring schools, you know, to a higher level. I think the federal government's role should be to create standards that schools would have to, adhere to. On the other hand, I think a lot of the what's it? The standardized tests, do pose an impediment. Is all sorts of different groups have standardized tests, and many teachers have complained that they don't have the time during the year to teach the students what the students need to know. They have to teach the students what they need for the test. And so being the standardized testing is being an impediment to the teachers teaching effectively. Um, so I'd like to create an organization of educators to serve as advisors to help me figure out how to best shape up schools. How to improve our education system without adding undue burden on the teachers themselves. But and I am also a proponent of a Biden era grant program through the Department of Education, where the Department of Education gave schools extra money so that they could buy healthy, nutritious food, fruits and vegetables from local farms, local to the school district. So, for instance, here, there's plenty of farms around, that the Malone schools, Plattsburgh schools, these school districts could buy food from these local farms, buy fresh vegetables for school lunches instead of getting the cheaper, highly processed, full of corn syrup foods. That by giving children proper nutrition, they could perform better in school. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Jared.
All right. Anyone else got one for me?
I don't want to dominate, but I do have another question. Like Brandon again, I apologize for the road noise.
Go for it.
What's your view on what we're seeing from the current administration with efforts to influence, if not overtake, foreign Venezuela, Greenland, and the nations of other sovereign countries?
What's my take on our administration's attempts to influence and take other countries? I'm against it. I do not think the United States should be the world police. I believe each country has its own sovereignty, and we should not meddle in other countries' internal affairs. Historically, when we've done it, it's gone bad for us. We didn't like the regime in Iran, so we helped a guy named Muammar Gaddafi take over. How did that turn out? We didn't like what was going on in the Middle East, so we propped up a guy named Saddam Hussein. We didn't like, I believe it was Che Guevara in Cuba, so we helped Fidel Castro pull a coup. We were fighting some people in the Middle East, and so we trained a guy named Osama bin Laden to fight them for us. Every time we meddle, it ends badly, years down the line. All of our country's major enemies in the last 50 years are people that we put in power. So let's stop overthrowing countries. On top of that, the United Nations Charter has a specific article that says that the members of the United Nations will not exert undue influence into the runnings of other nations. So the attack in Venezuela, we were called out about that because that violated the UN Charter. Um, any attack against Greenland, and the NATO has already stated that if we attempt to attack Greenland, if we try to take it by military force, all of NATO will come to Greenland's aid. Even Canada has said they'll send forces against, to fight the U.S. And that's not a war I would want to be part of. So unless we're specifically asked to, I say we stay out of interfering in other countries.
So I am curious about this thing, and it's maybe it's a Congress thing, not a executive branch thing. But what guardrails do you think the president can put on the office of the president so we don't get into a situation where one person can just decide we're not going to honor the things that we already promised we would do, like just because it was someone else that made that promise, you know, like we told the Ukraine we would defend them if they gave up nuclear weapons. They did that, and then I mean, here we are. We're not doing that. There's more examples. I just don't want to go through them.
Right.
But like, what guardrails can the president put on themselves and future presidents that we can't just promise things one year and one administration and then just break those promises later? Because this is not a thing that's going to go away.
Right. Yeah, we've already started a bad precedent. Um, and theoretically, I guess not theoretically, but the guardrails created by the Constitution, where the three branches of government should be equal, checks and balances. That the president can't just unilaterally decide something. You know, all treaties are voted on by Congress, so Congress should be the guardrails for the president. We've entered a very dangerous system where we have an extremist party. I do not mean that the Republicans are an extremist party, but we're an extremist part of the Republican Party, control all three branches. Um, we have, a conservative majority on the Supreme Court, 6-3. Six of the justices are conservatives, and three of them were appointed by Trump. Um, so they're to one degree or another loyal to him. They have ruled against him on some minor issues, but on the major ones, they're united with him. And this same party, his loyalists also control Congress. So they're dismantling, these guardrails that should be in place. They're supposed to hold him in check, and they're just giving him free reign. Um, the only solution that I've come up with at the moment is breaking the two-party system. Instead of it just being Republicans and Democrats, we need to strengthen a third-party movement to get not nonpartisan members, but differently partisan members. So, okay, the Republicans are all in favor of this, but it's not just Republicans, Democrats. Republicans only have so many seats. Democrats have so many seats. Now, Green Party has a couple seats, and the Working Family Party has a couple seats, and the Independence Party has a couple seats, and the Conservative Christian Party has a couple seats. Um, So no single party could have the majority. You know, you know, preventing anyone from having a majority in Congress and forcing them to actually, work together to actually get things passed. Like, like they used to work together 20 years ago. Um, I think that would bring those guardrails back. You know, that way, the president's party could not dominate and take the guardrails away. So that's why I'm running on the independent platform. I don't want to be beholden to a single party because we see the people, they talk, oh, this is so bad, this is so bad. Yet when the vote actually happens, they vote party lines. And if they don't vote party lines, the party just kicks them out. Everyone knew Trump did wrong, in his first term when he was impeached. Yet every Republican that voted to impeach him, none of them got reelected. Some just resigned because from internal party pressure, and others were just flat out kicked out of the party. And, that's puts us in this situation again, where he's committing crimes, he's committing war crimes, even. Um, and the checks and balances are failing. So I think we need to change the people, we need to change the political landscape. We've had successful democracies in Europe with 20 odd parties that all have seats in their Congress or Parliament or whatever they call their legislative branch.
Follow-up question.
Okay.
I wholeheartedly agree with you that we need to reduce maybe we can't get rid of a two-party system. Ideally, we would, but how could we reduce uh, the power and influence? How could we minimize the power and influence of a two-party system to get more divergent voices and more of a tolerance for centrist policies and thinking? That's kind of more philosophical than practical, but like there are examples mostly on the municipal level of ranked choice voting. Some states have open primaries and so on. I don't know if things like that can be implemented on a federal level, but just hypothetically, would you support adjustments to primaries on a federal level, like ranked choice voting for president, maybe?
I'm in favor of an amendment to abolish the Electoral College. I would like to see the presidency go to an actual popular vote. As for the, breaking the two-party system, that's not an overnight thing. That's, a generational thing. And it will happen, bit by bit. We could chip away at it. We are seeing a lot of that on the municipal level, on, even to a certain degree on the state level, with, a lot more independent legislatures in, the state government. We see a lot of mayors from independent parties or, independent candidates or third parties. And it's just it's voter activism would be the key to getting it, more on the federal level. Because we need to get the voters to think that they're not trapped by a two-party system. There are other candidates, but they don't look at the other choices. They just read the first two lines of the ballot. Republican or Democrat, they don't stop to think, well, what does number 3 on the ballot want? We get all these Democrats and Republicans that on for federal elections just vote party line instead of actually voting for a candidate that believes in the same things they believe in. Yeah, as I considered my own beliefs and compared them to the Democrats and the Republicans, and neither one's a perfect match. And I started looking at third parties, and well, this one actually comes pretty close, and this one comes pretty close. Um, I was all for the Reform Party. Uh, the first time I looked, they were the first party I found that matched 90% of my beliefs. So I think by educating the voters and showing them that there are other choices, um, once we get one person to break through, um, then they'll see they don't have to vote just Republican or Democrat. They can actually vote their conscience. And once we do that, then the people in Congress won't be as beholden to their party. And well, if the Republicans kick me out, I could run as this, or even independent. And if I do what's best for the voters will vote for me. So I think it's just going to be a long-term system of education, educating the voters and then educating the actual government officials. That you don't have to obey the party line. You can actually do what's best for the voters, or do what the voters want. And once we make our elected officials beholden to the voters and show the voters that they actually have the power, then I think we'll start getting a Congress that will work for the people and not work for themselves.
Thanks, Jared. Can I ask you one more question? And that's all of my questions.
Oh, sure. As long as I get questions, I'm happy.
Okay. I did some Googling online about executive orders. I was surprised to learn that it's not just in the last 2 decades or so where
Oh, no, it's
executive orders.
from the beginning.
Yeah. Roosevelt, the first Roosevelt, had like 10,000 executive orders in the one or more terms. Um, and so it's really become both Democrat and Republican presidents. It's really become a fallback. Um, if first of all, do you see that as a problem? And secondly, how would you change that as president?
I don't see executive orders as being a problem. However, I think that some presidents on both sides have used them inappropriately, because the executive order simply is an order for the executive branch. So that's anything from uh, some big events coming up, so everyone's doing overtime this week, to cover for it. That's an executive order. A lot of people, presidents don't realize that it's limited in scope. It is just an order to the executive branch. Um, right now, on file, there are a bit over 15,000 executive orders. Um, some have been, abolished. And certain executive orders are abolishing previous executive orders. And I have plans on using executive orders. I just understand their limit in scope. I can tell, one of my executive orders no federal law enforcement is allowed to wear masks in performing the duties of their job. So no more masked thugs on the street. Everyone can see their face, and that is an executive. That's within the scope of an executive order. It is an order to the FBI, the ICE, the U.S. Marshal Service. All of those are within the executive branch. Um, I probably won't do an executive order ordering Taco Tuesday. Um, Sounds like a fun executive order, but I think that one would be an abuse of power, and so I would avoid it. But I would know that that only affects the break rooms or the cafeterias within federal or within executive branch agencies. So Congress would not get Taco Tuesday. But an executive order for the tariffs, that is inappropriate. As Congress has control over the over taxes, and so an executive order would not overturn the constitutionally mandated powers. So I just think some presidents need more training than others. Do we have any more questions for today?
Nothing from me.
I appreciate your thoughtful answers. I don't have anything additional.
Thank you very much. I guess if we're out of questions, then I will just call the meeting for today. I thank you all for attending. I will be hosting another one the last Saturday of February. Hopefully, we can get some more people, some more answers. You know, just want to invite you. Remember that I have the YouTube channel. I post weekly videos there. I believe you're all subscribed to my newsletter, so you get my monthly updates. Yeah. So thank you very much for coming. You guys have a wonderful day.